Picture this. It's the night before Thanksgiving, 1971. And a man in a business suit is free falling through complete darkness at 200 miles per hour.
In freezing rain, it's negative 70 degrees with a wind chill.
And he's clutching $200,000 in $20 bills to his chest.
Having just jumped out of a Boeing 727 somewhere over Washington State.
Yeah. And he threatened to blow up a plane full of people, but was so polite about it that the flight attendant thought he was flirting.
He pulled off the only unsolved air piracy case in American history. Also, how presumptuous of her.
And after 50 years, we still have absolutely no idea who he was, where he even landed, because he just completely vanished.
So, no body, no parachute, no trace, no cap.
They call him D.B. Cooper, but that's not even his real name.
And after 50 years, we still have absolutely no idea who he was, where he went.
Or even if he survived the jump.
So, some mysteries are meant to be solved.
And some become legends.
Sneaky footsteps in the night, clues that vanish out of sight. Grab your hat and magnifying glass. We'll talk this case and have a blast. Mugshot Mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. Laughs and chills, it's quite the show. Who did it? Tune in to know.
Welcome back, Mugshotters. I'm your host, Kathryn, and sitting across from me with what I can only describe as an unusually excited expression is my co-host, Gabriel.
Because I've been waiting for this one. There's no blood, there's no bodies, it's just a mystery, and a man who jumped out of a plane with $200,000 vanished into legend, and you know I love the movie Point Break, and this just reminds me of it.
Yeah, and that's right, because today we're diving into the only unsolved air piracy case in American history. This is the story of D.B. Cooper, or should I say Dan Cooper?
Yeah, let's start with the corrections. So, you know what's fascinating about his name? The media actually got it wrong from day one. He never called himself D.B. Cooper.
Well, that's true, because November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, a man in a business suit walks up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter at Portland International Airport and buys a one-way ticket to Seattle. He identifies himself as Dan Cooper. Just Dan. The DB came from a reporter's mistake. They were checking suspects and found a D.B. Cooper who had a minor record, but he was cleared immediately. The name stuck, though, and it's like a game of telephone that became history. Because honestly, D.B. Cooper sounds a lot cooler than Dan Cooper. It's just more mysterious.
This sounds like a writer.
Yeah.
So good for him. So speaking of mysteries, can we talk about how normal this guy seemed? Because that's what gets me every time. So we probably have seen his mugshot picture. I feel like it's pretty famous. But
yeah,
picture this. So he's a middle-aged man, maybe mid-40s, about 5'10" to 6 feet tall, maybe 170 to 180 pounds. Dark brown eyes, olive complexion, black hair, possibly has a receding hairline. I mean, it's pretty much me, right? So he's wearing a black raincoat over a dark suit. He has a white shirt. He has a black tie with a pearl tie pin. He's carrying a black attaché case and a paper bag.
All right.
This guy is like the epitome of a 1970s businessman. Like, this is the guy that you see in the movies as an extra. So literally looks like anybody's accountant, maybe sells insurance.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, so he boards flight 305, which is a Boeing 727, and that only has 36 passengers. So not exactly packed for a holiday flight. He takes seat 18C in the back of the plane and orders bourbon and soda and lights up a Raleigh cigarette.
Wait, so Raleigh cigarettes, which is a very specific detail. I've also never in my life heard of that cigarette, and I've smoked literally every cigarette there is.
Ew.
I mean, in a former life.
Ew.
You didn't know me then. Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Mostly.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just gloss over that one. So anywho, the flight attendants remembered because even then, Raleigh wasn't the most popular brand. It's those little details that make this case so intriguing. So Florence Schaffner was the flight attendant he first approached. She was a young woman, 23 years old, and Cooper hands her a note.
So this is what's interesting, and it tells us a lot about people.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even read it.
I don't get that. I would.
Well, she assumed it was a phone number because this is the 70s, and flight attendants in the 70s got hit on constantly. Have you seen those outfits?
Yes.
I mean, do you want one of those outfits? I mean, I might want you to have one of those outfits.
Oh my God.
You should probably get one of those outfits. No, I'm kidding.
Halloween's past.
Mostly. Anyways, so she just dropped it in her purse, which is a problem I've never had. If I got a number, I would probably frame it.
Again, I am not touching on any of that. Anyway, until Cooper leaned over and said,
Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb.
And she just thought nothing of him. And why would she? He was so unassuming.
And the calmness. That's what every witness remembers, how incredibly polite and calm he was throughout the entire hijacking. Now, as you can see, hijacking calm don't usually go together.
No.
So I personally like to think that's exactly how I would commit crimes. The solicitous desperado.
And the note said he had a bomb in his briefcase and wanted $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and fuel trucks standing by in Seattle. Oh, and of course, no funny stuff or he'd blow up the plane. I mean, that goes without saying. The $20 bills specifically, though, that's what's interesting from a practical standpoint because hundreds would have been much lighter, though arguably harder to spend. 20s in 1971 were like today's hundreds in terms of purchasing power, but still common enough not to raise suspicion. So Schaffner takes the note to the cockpit and tells Captain William Scott, and then Cooper shows her the bomb. So she sits next to him, and he opens the briefcase just enough for her to see the red cylinders, wires, and a battery.
Now, here's something most people probably don't know. The FBI later concluded it probably wasn't a real bomb. So the description suggests somebody who knew just enough about explosives to make it fake, right? So it was convincing enough. It could have been road flares with some wires, could look pretty convincing when it's a dimly lit briefcase. Besides, how many people know what a homemade bomb looks like? If I told you my PlayStation had plastique layered in it, I think you would just take my word for it because people would trust me.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I agree. I'm not going to call that bluff at 10,000 feet in the air. Well, not at 0 feet sea level either, to be completely honest. And now that I think of it, I am not a good BS player. You ever play that game?
No, never heard of it.
Okay, well, it's the card game, and you say you're putting down a certain amount of cards at the same suit, and you might be lying or you might not. I'm a good liar, but just not a good BSer.
I'm trying to figure out the difference between those two. Well, if I'm being completely honest, I totally know what that game is, and I was just BSing. So when the plane circles Seattle, it's for about 2 hours while the FBI and Northwest Oriented scramble to get these demands together. And Cooper, Dan Cooper, he's sitting there drinking his bourbon. He's smoking. He's being remarkably courteous to the crew. He's smoking those weird cigarettes. He even offered to make meal requests for the crew when they landed because he knew they would be hungry. Now, well, this is a great idea because you don't want hangry people, during a hijacking because they might do something. Now, I've seen those meals. Do you remember those meals? I've seen pictures of them.
Yeah.
That they used to serve in the 70s.
Look way better than what we get now.
That was a better life. You know what I mean? But seriously.
And the legroom.
Who does that during a hijacking? Well, someone who's either extremely confident or has thought this through in incredible detail, or both. So the psychological profile on this guy must have been fascinating to those who do psychological profiles. I mean, I have one on you, by the way. Ugh. I don't know that you knew about it.
That sounds creepy.
Well, just a little dossier of what makes you tick. Not sure if you've ever seen me writing in that book. But based off your psychological profile, my future looks scary.
Yeah. So you know what I'm going to say next then?
I probably should say we should continue the story.
Yeah, I'd say so. Let me just go ahead and save you from you and then save you from me. Okay? So they land in Seattle at 5:39 p.m. Cooper releases the 36 passengers. He never threatened them. Most didn't even know they were being hijacked until they landed. But he does keep several crew members, though.
And here's where it gets interesting because the money arrives, $200,000 in used bills. It's all serialized and photographed by the FBI beforehand. Mm-hmm. They actually had to go to several Seattle banks to gather that many 20s on such short notice.
Wait, I didn't know that they had to hit multiple banks.
Yeah, and it was the day before Thanksgiving, so most banks are already closed or they're closing. They were literally racing around Seattle gathering $20 bills. So, can you imagine being this FBI agent assigned to this task? I know you know how that works working in banks.
Oh, I know. And get the, I need $30,000 in hundreds. It's my money and you're a bank. Well, honey, let me be the first to tell you, banks don't have that much money. But can you imagine having that job though? Seriously, like, hey, honey, I'll be late for dinner. I need to go collect some ransom money. I'd be looking for lipstick stains when you got home. That sounds like a ridiculous lie.
Well, I'm a good BS player, remember? So the parachutes were another story altogether. They got them from a local skydiving school, which is a thing. And here's a little brain twister. Cooper specifically asked for 4 parachutes. He wanted specifically 2 primary and 2 reserves. But why would he ask for 4?
So this is actually brilliant. The FBI thought he might force a crew member to jump with him, so they wouldn't dare give him a bad shoe. All 4 had to be functional. This guy was going to go full Swayze Point Break. I'm an FBI agent! Out that plane.
You had me at Point Break. This is why I married you. This is why we click. So the love of Swayze, the love of Nathan Fillion, Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yes.
But this was an amazing idea. He guarantees his own safety by implying someone innocent might need a parachute too. So he never intended to take anyone with him.
Exactly. So once everything's delivered and verified, Cooper releases the flight attendants, except for Tina Mucklow. He keeps her, plus the pilot, the co-pilot, and flight engineer. He tells them to fly to Mexico City. But here's the thing. The 727 can't make it to Mexico City on 1 tank of fuel, not with the specifications Cooper demanded. Gear deployed, flaps at 15 degrees, and flying below 10,000 feet at reduced speed, which tells us what?
So he either didn't know the plane's range limitations or Mexico City was never his real destination. I lean towards the second option, obviously, because given this dude planned out the whole thing in detail, he knew that, right? Like, this guy seemed to know everything.
Right. So they agree on Reno for refueling. The plane takes off at 7:40 p.m., and Cooper sends Tina Mucklow to the cockpit to tell the crew not to come out. The last time anyone sees him, he's tying the money bag around his waist. And at 8:05 p.m., a warning light comes on in the cockpit. The aft stairs have been deployed. These stairs on the 727 could be lowered during flight, but that's something that's impossible on modern aircraft, specifically because of D.B. Cooper. He ruined it for everyone. I mean, I personally think people should be able to jump out like it's a bus stop if the plane is flying over their house or something. Like, why wait to get to the airport?
And wait to get out of there with your suitcase.
Honestly.
So I'm super on board with this idea. I would just watch people, though. I would probably never do it. So they actually call them Cooper vanes now, which is the devices that prevent the stairs from being lowered in flight. So this guy got a plane part named after him. This guy's a legend.
Yeah, a bit. So that's presumably when he jumped, somewhere over southwestern Washington, in the dark, in the rain, wearing a business suit and a parachute he never inspected in daylight, into freezing winds at 170 miles per hour. Sounds like a great idea. So the crew lands in Reno at 10:15 p.m. The stairs, of course, are still down. Cooper's gone, along with 2 parachutes and the money. He left behind his tie clip, and then 2 of the parachutes.
Including one interesting detail.
Mm-hmm.
He used one of the parachutes to secure the money bag. He cut the suspension lines from one of the emergency chutes, which tells us he knew something about parachutes, right?
Interesting.
So you don't just randomly think to do that. I mean, I didn't even know what a shroud line was.
Mm-mm.
Do you know what a shroud line is?
No.
No one except someone who knows parachutes knows what a shroud line is. So let's talk about the jump itself, because this is where the story goes from daring to like suicidal. So November night in Pacific Northwest, we're talking negative degrees Fahrenheit at that altitude, wind chill making it feel like, I've read, negative 70 degrees American.
And he did all that while in a business suit. And even if he had some Superman thermal whitey tighties on, which some investigators suspected because he seemed bulkier than his suit would suggest, that's still insane.
You gotta be careful in describing a man's looking bulky in the pants area, is all I'm saying. But this is fascinating because this person either had extensive jump training and believed they could survive, or they were so desperate or determined that death was an acceptable outcome. Like, there is zero middle ground here.
Yeah. Okay. So let's paint the picture of where he jumped. The FBI initially calculated the jump zone as somewhere near the Lewis River in southwest Washington, about 30 miles north of Portland. But here's where it gets a little bit contentious. In 1971, they were working with radar tracks, weather data, and the crew's best guesses about timing. So the potential landing area was massive. We're talking hundreds of square miles of forest, much of it old-growth Douglas fir. Trees that can be 200 feet tall with canopies so thick you can barely see the forest floor from above.
All I think of when you say Douglas fir is Christmas trees, and I'm
Almost
telling
here.
you, an 8-foot one now is like $400. No, so if he hit one of those trees at terminal velocity, kerplat, like he's done. So let's just say they might never find something but the parachute and those whitey tighties. So the FBI conducted one of the most extensive manhunts in U.S. history. It was literally called Operation Norjack, Northwest Hijacking. They searched for 18 days initially, then sporadic searches for years. Here's a number that blows my mind. They investigated over 800 suspects over the years.
800?
800 people who someone thought might be Dan Cooper.
All right, well, of those 800, it included Kenneth Christensen, a Northwest Orient employee who knew the 727 inside and out and was a trained paratrooper, and bought a house with cash shortly after the hijacking. Seems fitting, but he was ruled out because he didn't match the physical description well enough. He was too short, wrong build, although his brother was convinced it was him. And then there's Richard Floyd McCoy, and this one's wild. He actually pulled off a similar hijacking 4 months after Cooper. On April 7th, 1972, McCoy hijacks a United Airlines flight and demands $500,000, jumps over Utah, and actually gets away with it initially. They catch him 2 days later because he was sloppy. He left fingerprints and was identified by witnesses. And some FBI agents were convinced McCoy was Cooper, just going for round 2. But McCoy was in his late 20s, and multiple witnesses said Cooper was at least in his mid-40s. Unless he had the best anti-aging routine in history, which I want to know about. It wasn't him.
Well, I mean, personally, I think our boy Dan Cooper would not be that sloppy. I mean, I think obviously, but I mean, imagine if he did have the ego to do it twice. I mean, that's absolute hubris. But from a criminology sense, many criminals do escalate from one crime to another. So they get away with something once, and I don't know, the adrenaline, the sense of being untouchable, it's addictive. It's like when I dunked a basketball for the first and last time. So let's talk about what they actually found. For 9 years, nothing. Absolutely nothing except what Cooper left on the plane. Then in 1980, and this is a whole weird story, right? So an 8-year-old Brian Ingram is camping with his family on the Columbia River. So this is 9 miles downstream from Vancouver, Washington.
Okay.
He's digging in the sand like kids do to make a fire pit, and he finds 3 packets of $20 bills. They're badly deteriorated, but they're still bundled with rubber bands. There is a total of $5,800 there. The serial numbers matched Cooper's bills. This is the only physical evidence of the money ever found outside the plane. But here's where it gets even weirder. The bills were found way downstream from where anyone thought Cooper would have landed. And they were a remarkably organized condition for having supposedly been in a river for 9 years.
And weren't the rubber bands still intact? Because rubber bands disintegrate in water within a year or two. So
One would think.
Yeah. And so either those bills hadn't been in the water that long or they'd been protected somehow. So some investigators think that the money was deliberately planted there years later, but by who? And then why only 5,800 out of the 200,000? It's like the con that kept going. It's literally the ultimate commitment to a lie. And you know what? Sometimes you guys in your lies, do you hear of women having 2 families? Huh? That's guy territory.
Yeah, we tell so many lies, we start living our lies, and then we forget our lies, and then I write them down in my dossier.
Oh my God, and then you get caught because I'm going to find that dossier. All right, so then there's this theory that Cooper survived and buried the money, and it was unearthed by flooding years later. The Washougal River theory suggests the money traveled down tributaries to where Brian had found it. But hydrologists, and yes, that's a thing, it's the people who stutter water properties like the water boy.
Yes.
Well, they like H2O. And those guys were having problems with that. The physics of how bundled money would travel in water, it just doesn't quite work out. So unless the money was in a bag that eventually degraded, releasing the bills in that one spot, it just doesn't make sense. So are you ready for a conspiracy theory? I've got one.
Yeah, so it's Bobby Boucher, and he's a hydrologist. No, always tell me, please.
Okay. Cooper was a Boeing employee. Boeing was going through massive layoffs in 1971 that they literally called it the Boeing bust. So Seattle was devastated. Someone with intimate knowledge of the 727, angry at the airline industry, decides to make a statement.
So it was like that flight attendant who activated the emergency chute. Do you remember hearing about that?
I actually don't remember that.
Okay, so this guy quits his job. I'm pretty sure he's like, I'm done with this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And they were on the ground, but he's like, I'm done with this bullshit. And he activated the emergency chute, and he slid down the place, and he definitely got arrested for it because he did not do that. Anyways, so this would explain the specific choice of the aircraft, which is a 727. And that was the only commercial jet at that time that you could actually lower those aft stairs in flight and survive the jump, or potentially survive the jump.
Yeah.
And a Boeing employee would know that. They would also have connections to probably get parachutes. They might even have some jump training from military service. Here's an epistemological puzzle, though. You like that? How do we know? Barely can say it. Epistemological puzzle. So how do we know what we think we know about Dan Cooper? Everything is from eyewitness testimony, and we know how unreliable that can be. Mm-hmm. So that composite sketch, which many people have probably seen, is pretty famous. That composite sketch, everyone knows that was done from memories days after the event.
Days, not good. And different witnesses remembered different things. So one of the flight attendants said he had brown eyes, and another said, oh, they might have been hazel.
Which to a guy is the same thing.
Yes, but listen, girls, we got this. His age ranges from 35 to 50, depending on who you ask. I mean, I'm sure if they saw him again, they'd probably recognize him. But it's like when you forget something, you need a clue to get your brain to start working again. And like at my age, guys, I need sticky notes everywhere. And
I've seen it.
And even then, sometimes I just don't even read it, so it doesn't help. So he could have been wearing makeup, a toupee, anything to alter his appearance. And some investigators think the olive complexion might have been stage makeup to appear more ethnic. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of terrible and hilarious, but it would throw off descriptions.
Then he would have got canceled.
Today, absolutely.
There's also a question of accent. So most witnesses said that he had no distinctive accent, but one thought they heard a slight southern drawl. So linguistic analysts of his words, he used the term aft stairs, which is, again, aviation terminology, not common usage. He also knew to request 4 parachutes specifically, not just parachutes, but 4. So being that specific suggests he obviously was planning this.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sheridan Peterson for a moment. He died in 2021, but before that, he was a Boeing employee who many thought fit the profile perfectly. He had skydiving experience, worked on the 727 project. He even kind of looked like the sketch. His children even thought it might be him, which, narcs, come on. But the FBI ruled him out based on DNA from the tie Cooper left behind. Although, the tie DNA is a little bit problematic. That tie had been handled by who knows how many people. Investigators, evidence clerks, the list is endless, and we don't even know for certain it was Cooper's tie versus the one left by a previous passenger. Again, we got an O.J. Simpson situation here. If the tie doesn't fit, you must have quit.
So the evidence room itself was probably not like Fort Knox here. So I'm pretty sure you just walked in on a whim and you tried the thing on. Here's the thing that bothers me. Mm-hmm. Why would he pick Thanksgiving Eve? Was that intentional or coincidental? I mean, it doesn't seem like it. I mean, from a practical standpoint, I guess it makes some sense. So there's probably going to be skeleton crews everywhere. People are distracted by holiday plans. There's less law enforcement, but also meant worse weather for jumping, which, to be honest, may have been an important factor here. Maybe he really hated turkey. Maybe he really hated Thanksgiving.
I don't like turkey. I'm team Cornish hen.
What is like the opposite of the Grinch and Christmas? Thanksgiving and
Cooper. It's Cooper.
And Dan.
Okay, listen. Unless he didn't plan to jump over Washington at all, what if he planned to jump earlier but something went wrong? Or what if he never jumps? So hear me out.
Another conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I love them. Okay. I'm full of them. What if he hid in the plane?
Oh.
So we're going to go full conspiracy now.
Yeah, I like that.
So the 727 has spaces where someone theoretically could hide. So what if he triggered the stairs, threw out some weight to create the oscillation, and then hid until landing. And then they searched the plane thoroughly in Reno, though. So, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, but did they? I mean, it was probably dark. They were focused on the stairs being down, the aft stairs, assuming he jumped. So how thoroughly do you really search for someone when you're certain they're not there?
Exactly.
Or assume isn't there? They may have made asses of you and me.
Yes, because you don't assume, guys, because that's what it does. But that's actually like not completely insane. He could have had an accomplice among the ground crew in Reno, or just walked off in all the confusion, put on a maintenance uniform, hidden in the plane, walked away. But then, where's the money? And why has none of it ever surfaced in circulation except those bills that Brian found? Is this guy like freaking Jason Bourne?
Well, that's $200,000 question, folks. The FBI has monitored those serial numbers for decades. Not a single bill has ever showed up in circulation, which suggests either Cooper died and the money was lost, or he was disciplined enough never to use it. Or he laundered it, maybe internationally. In 1971, it would probably have been much easier to exchange currency without scrutiny, I assume, because like everything was easier in the 70s to do without scrutiny. So if he made it to Mexico or further south, those bills could have been exchanged for local currency without anyone checking serial numbers. There's also the theory that Cooper was CIA, which I freaking love because, you know, I love CIA conspiracy theories.
Same.
So either he was CIA or he was military intelligence gone rogue. So it would explain the calm under pressure, the parachuting knowledge, the meticulous planning, the fact that I do think he was Jason Bourne.
And also potentially why he was never caught. If he was intelligence, he'd know how to disappear. Some people point to the fact that he knew about the aft stairs, but he didn't know about the plane's range to Mexico City. So that could be evidence that he wasn't that sophisticated. Or it was a misdirection.
Which I believe.
Yeah, make them think you don't know something that you actually do know. Because I think he knew the plane couldn't get there. If he knew planes this well, I mean, I could probably figure that out.
So I just like to make people think you don't know something that I actually do know, but I like to make people think I don't know something that I actually don't know.
Wow, my head.
So that I think is actually what's fascinating. Like there's no political demands. There's no manifesto, and you know people love manifestos.
Sure do.
Just money. But if it was just about money, there's easier ways to probably get $200,000 in 1971. And also, he may have never spent it.
Unless the challenge was the point, the thrill.
So this is like Maslow's hierarchy gone wrong. This is him self-actualizing through jumping out of a plane, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Barbara Dayton for a second, because that's a unique one.
And I did read about this. This is the transgender theory. This is actually really interesting if we're talking about like sociological perspectives.
It is. So Barbara Dayton was born Robert Dayton and transitioned in 1969 and claimed to friends before her death that she was D.B. Cooper. She had pilot experience, knew parachuting, and lived in Washington State.
So the theory goes that she dressed as a man for the hijacking, which would explain why witnesses couldn't agree on certain physical features. Makeup and masculine presentation could probably also account for discrepancies. They were confused.
Yeah, think of all of our K-pop stars we love. She even claimed to have hidden the money and lost it in a flood, which could explain the Columbia River bills.
But that sounds pretty fishy. So the FBI thought so too and did not take this seriously. So she never provided any concrete proof. Though, imagine if D.B. Cooper was actually a woman. That would certainly rewrite everything we think we know about this case.
It'd be the ultimate disguise in 1971. Literally, nobody would even consider it.
So speaking of things nobody considered, let's talk about how this hijacking changed aviation forever.
And besides the Cooper veins we mentioned?
Yeah, so metal detectors became mandatory in 1973, largely because of Cooper and the copycat hijackings that followed.
Insane.
Before Cooper, you could literally walk onto a plane with whatever you wanted.
And there were, 15 copycat attempts in 1972 alone?
And none were successful like Cooper's, but the airlines were obviously terrified. So there's this romance of Cooper's story. The polite gentleman bandit who hurt no one. That narrative itself is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, because he became a folk hero. And there are bars named after him, movies, songs. In the Pacific Northwest, he basically is a legend.
So he represents something America loves, which is, of course, the individual fighting against the man, fighting against the system. He is the clever underdog who outsmarts authority.
Well, even though he was technically a criminal who threatened to blow up a plane full of people.
But he didn't, and that's the key to the mythology, right? So no violence, no victims except the airline insurance company. It's a perfect crime in that sense.
Okay, so then let me throw out another theory. Cooper was dying. Terminal illness. Nothing to lose.
Which would explain the seemingly suicidal jump. If you're going to die anyways, why not go out as a legend?
And it would explain why he never even surfaced. He achieved what he wanted. One last adventure, making history, and then died on his own terms.
And that's something existentially beautiful. Choosing your own exit from the world, literally and figuratively.
I mean, I'm terrified of the thought of that, but I totally get it. And that is kind of poetic. But the FBI officially suspended active investigation in 2016, though they say they'll still follow credible leads if there are any.
So this is like 45 years later. They've interviewed 1,000 suspects. The man hours alone must have cost millions by this point.
Has to have. But here's what kills me. Someone probably does know what happened. Statistically, secrets this big rarely stay completely hidden. Someone somewhere absolutely knows something.
Or this could be really boring and Cooper really did die on the impact and his body is just out there in the wilderness, just decaying, slowly becoming part of the forest floor and those gigantic Douglas firs.
Bruh, that's morbid even for us.
I mean, but think about it. The Pacific Northwest forests are dense. Hunters still occasionally find plane crashes from the 40s and 50s. One single body with a parachute easily disappears forever.
Yeah, Tommy Toussaint claimed that his uncle was Cooper. William Gossett, another suspect, told his sons that he was Cooper. Dwayne Weber confessed on his deathbed to his wife that he was Dan Cooper and maybe just wanted to leave a parting.
Do you know what's funny or morbid or just, the older you get, the better you were? So deathbed confessions are totally a thing. So people facing death will take credit for really big things. It's like getting a form of immortality, ensuring that you'll be remembered. So like on my deathbed, I'll probably finally come clean to a few things. Like,
oh my gosh.
You won't know until then. So just keep waiting in anticipation.
If only. But in this case, none of them had proof. No hidden money, no souvenirs from the plane, nothing concrete. Just really big claims. And you know what they say, the older I get, the more famous crimes you've committed.
So you have no idea how much better at football I've gotten over the years?
None.
Could have gone pro, babe. Could have been a contender. No, but seriously, what would constitute proof at this point? The money serial numbers are known, but after 50 years, that physical evidence is probably gone.
Yeah. DNA from the tie, if it's reliable, a credible witness who helped him, or someone finding the parachute. The parachute honestly would probably be the best evidence because those things don't just disappear even after 50 years. They're not disintegrating. Stuff like nylon is built in a lab and built to last. Carbon emissions and all. So unless it burned, if Cooper knew he was being tracked, burning the evidence, well, that would have been smart.
And here's a weird detail that I do love. Cooper apparently knew about the McCord Air Force Base being nearby. He commented on this during the flight. So this suggests that he had local knowledge or he had good reconnaissance. But yeah, it points to someone who was definitely familiar with the Seattle-Tacoma area. The precision of this whole operation is what gets me, CIA. He knew exactly how long the flight was, when to hand over the note, how to keep everything calm. This wasn't impulsive, or so it seems.
Yeah, but he wasn't perfect. He left evidence. The tie clip, cigarette butts. A truly professional criminal wouldn't leave DNA evidence unless he wanted to leave evidence.
Exactly.
So you create some of those false leads. I mean, like, God, we're going into a full conspiracy spiral now. This is where you wanted it to go from the beginning, isn't it? Is this the stuff that you're always looking on Discord for?
To be honest, I'm not really quite sure how Discord works. And at this point, I feel too old to ask. But seriously, what if the tie wasn't his? What if he bought it at a thrift store? What if he wore it once and then just left it behind? That's an instant false lead.
I mean, it's actually kind of brilliant and terrifying.
So, another theory I haven't heard about much.
What's that?
Cooper was a woman dressed as a man, which we talked about.
Yeah.
But was not Barbara Dayton.
Go on.
So the witnesses all agree Cooper was unusually polite, never crude, very considerate. The way he insisted Tina Mucklow stay in the cockpit for her safety during the jump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this is far-fetched, but you know who's better emotional intelligence than men? Women. I know that's stereotypical. We might associate more with women. It's just because men suck. That's kind of a crazy theory, and I admit, probably pretty flaccid. But it is one, and I needed one besides the CIA.
I mean, that's actually not crazy because
you're biased, so.
Well, listen. In 1971, a woman in a suit and tie would be so unexpected that witnesses would probably not even consider it. The height and weight estimates could be off if Cooper was wearing lifts and padding, and the olive complexion, well, that could have just been makeup. Easy. If there is something I know, and there's a lot of things, by the way, but if there's something I know really well, it's makeup. And if I am ever getting a tan, it will be via MAC or Sephora Magic.
Which is very true. If you see a picture of this girl, you know how they have like black holes and nothing can survive its pull?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, your skin is like a porcelain hole in which no tan can survive.
That's rude.
But
and it's true, but it's rude.
But this is why I love this case. Every theory sounds possible and impossible all at the same time. It's like Schrodinger's skyjacker. He both survived and he died until proven otherwise.
Okay, so then let's talk about the cultural impact for a minute. Cooper inspired movies, books, even that terrible Netflix documentary, D.B. Cooper, Where Are You?
They're all terrible.
Yeah, but they're great. You still have to watch them. Anyway, it was interesting for the wrong reasons. They basically let anyone with a theory have screen time, which is kind of like our podcast, but including that guy who claimed his friend Robert Rackstraw was Cooper based on nothing.
Okay, so we watched this, and Rackstraw at least was a character, though, right? So he was Army paratrooper. He was convicted of murder, general chaos agent. So I obviously understand why people suspected him.
Yeah, but being a suspicious person doesn't make you D.B. Cooper. Half of these suspects are just weird guy who could maybe jump from a plane. And, as we've said, sometimes being weird doesn't make you guilty. It just makes you weird.
So this is the Cooper vortex. So once someone decides their uncle or neighbor was Cooper, they just see the evidence everywhere. So this is confirmation bias. Also, people are naturally conspiracy theorists. I know that's really surprising. So life is generally boring. Having old DB as a neighbor spices up the week. Like the people who think Cooper survived and sent coded messages to newspapers. So
is he the Zodiac now?
Well, yes, because in 1972, someone sent a letter to the New York Times claiming to be Cooper. Mm-hmm. Most investigators think it was a hoax. I'm pretty positive it was a hoax because, again, life is boring and people think of things to do. The psychological profiles are all over the place. Everything from disgruntled Boeing employee to like that thrill-seeking sociopath to the desperate family man needing money. Mm-hmm. I like the family man needing money, though, because I'm starting to take notes.
Oof, maybe don't. Maybe don't. Okay, but let me ask you, what's your personal theory?
Besides the CIA, no. Honestly, I think the most obvious and most likely is that Cooper just died on the impact, but not where you may think. Okay. The wind calculations, right, could have been off. He could have pulled a chute late. Any number of variables. He's probably within 50 miles of where they searched, but probably in a spot that nobody thought to look.
To be honest, that's freaking depressing.
Yeah, so what's your happy one?
Well, obviously, I think he survived the jump.
Okay.
But probably died shortly after from injuries or, exposure to the element. Someone found the body. Maybe a hermit. Maybe criminals using the forest. Took the money and kept quiet because they couldn't explain how they got it.
That's actually wildly creative.
I know.
It would explain why the money never surfaced. If the criminals found it, they know it was hot and they wouldn't use it. Oh, and the Mexico thing. Maybe they took it to Mexico. Because what happens in Mexico will surely leave you hungover.
I feel like you have experience on that.
In a former life, yes.
Okay, but you know what nobody talks about? How absolutely traumatized the crew must have been. Tina Mucklow quit flying not long after. Like, can you imagine being held hostage even by a polite hijacker? The juxtaposition of civility and threat, like, please remain calm while I potentially blow us all up. Like, that's pretty much just psychological torture, in my opinion. And then they had to fly the plane not knowing if the bomb was real, if Cooper was stable at all, or if they'd survive. Like, be as kind as you want. That's PTSD inducing.
And then you got to be like the living ones who let DB Cooper get away, even though they technically did everything right.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI agents on the case became pretty much obsessed. Ralph Heimelsbach, the lead investigator, wrote a book about it. He spent decades on this case.
So Heimelsbach was convinced that Cooper died.
Mm-hmm.
He called him a rotten, sleazy crook.
That's an insult.
It seemed a little harsh for someone who hurt nobody.
Well, but from his perspective, and mine, Cooper traumatized innocent people and stole money. The folk hero narrative must have been infuriating to them. There's something very American about making heroes out of outlaws, though. We know that. So we've gone over that a million times. Jesse James, Bonnie and Clyde, and now DB Cooper. And as long as they have that style and don't hurt innocent people, we love them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one person against the system. We love it. So stuff we wouldn't do, but we live vicariously through them. So even though the system in this case was just an airline and their employees trying to fly people home from Thanksgiving.
Yeah. All right. Let's do some rapid fire theories. Give me your wildest Cooper theory now. Shoot.
Cooper was multiple people. He was one person on the ground, another on the plane, possibly a third who jumped. It explains the description discrepancy and the perfect planning.
All right, I'm into this like a heist crew. I love it. Okay, mine. Cooper was a terminally ill airline employee who wanted to expose security flaws. Like, remember those Riley cigarettes? Yeah, maybe he smoked one too many in his life. And the money was secondary. The point was proving it could be done. And he had nothing to lose.
Okay, so you know what's wild. If Cooper is still alive, he'd be in his mid-90s now.
Possible.
Yeah, like him, Elvis, Michael, Prince, and maybe Jack from Titanic.
Woo,
just
they are alive.
chilling in Mexico somewhere.
Sitting in a nursing home somewhere watching documentaries about themselves.
Or
smoking the Raleighs.
Yeah, or furious how everybody gets their story wrong.
I'm totally picturing them sitting around there going, hey, that's not how it happened. But, you know, he can't say anything. He's not on his deathbed yet. The ultimate frustration, being the only one who knows the truth, but unable to share it. That would just freaking eat me alive.
Yeah, just waving your cane all around at everybody.
Unless, what if Cooper has been telling people for years, but nobody believes him? The bar stories, talking about his hijacking to the bartender as they just nod like, yeah, sure. There you are, old timer. And at this point, anyone under 40 might not know who the hell DB Cooper is.
Which is completely true because I've heard many old people say some ridiculous things. Sorry, I'm going to be old and I'm getting there. And I will start saying even more ridiculous things.
Yes, he's already saying them, guys.
Maybe people have tried and the FBI just doesn't publicize it. So they've dealt with hundreds of false confessions, obviously. So they probably have a whole file cabinet that's just like, I'm DB Cooper. So the real DB Cooper, if he survived, probably has like nerves of steel to never crack, never tell anyone, never spend the money. Like that's self-control I would not have because most criminals, guess what? They confess. So it's kind of a boring ending to the story if he just made it out alive. Like live a little bit, dude. I mean, unless he did tell someone and now they're carrying the secret.
Imagine being Cooper's kid or spouse and finding out after he died.
Yeah, like your father wasn't a traveling salesman, honey. He was DB Cooper. And the kid's obviously like, who's DB Cooper?
But, I mean, they'd be happy with there's $200,000 in 20s in the attic. But we can't spend it. Like the world's worst inheritance. Also, at this point, no one under 40 would know that these old bills are actually real money. Like George Washington's head looks too small.
Yeah, have you ever tried to give old money to a cashier?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're like, what is this fake money that you're trying to give me?
It's not purple.
Yeah.
But you know what detail I do love? Cooper knew to ask for 4 parachutes, but picked the worst one to actually use. He chose a training chute that couldn't be steered. And the one he picked was basically for classroom demonstrations only, which suggests either he couldn't actually identify parachute types in the dark or he just kind of made a fatal error.
Or he wanted them to think he made an error. But seriously, if you're smart enough to plan the heist, wouldn't you check your equipment? I guess, unless you were in just a hurry. So the crew said he did seem rushed at the end. So maybe it was all going perfectly. Then he just really blew the end of the date. So adrenaline kicking in. The reality of I'm about to jump into the dark over Washington in November and travel at terminal velocity, completely blind. Maybe that got to him.
I mean, and he did it in a business suit. And I swear, every time I think about that detail, it just gets more insane. Like the wind chill alone should have killed him. Negative 70 degrees, effective temperature, 200 miles per hour winds. Like, unless he had gear under that suit we don't know about, I just don't see how you withstand that.
Yeah. The bulky appearance. Some witness mentions, the bulky pants you seem obsessed about.
Wow. But also, yes, exactly. Maybe a wetsuit or survival gear or something I've never heard of, like military stuff that Navy SEALs wear when they're swimming in freezing water. I mean, that's a thing, right? It has to be.
I mean, let's just say yes, because that's a better story.
Yeah.
That would also suggest like serious planning, right? So military level planning, maybe CIA. I love every
CIA.
theory that starts with CIA.
Well, let's talk about what Cooper didn't do. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't make political demands, and he didn't seek fame. The absence of ego, seemingly, it's pretty remarkable. Like most criminals want recognition, unless the act itself was the recognition that he needed, like internal validation. I did the impossible and nobody knows it was me. And someone who needs to prove something to themselves, not others.
Or he's just telling everybody, but it's in a bar and he's an old timer. Yeah. So,
yeah, that's
or
true.
He's someone proving something to one specific person who would know. Again, guys do a hell of a lot of crazy things to impress the girls.
And what did you do to impress me?
I pretended to be well adjusted. It took a lot of willpower.
You did, like, at best, a mid job. But then, wouldn't these people come forward after Cooper presumably died?
I mean, I guess not if they thought it was going to get them in trouble.
Mob.
Or maybe they told a whole bunch of people and literally nobody believes them.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. Being connected to Cooper, even innocently, would have ruined your life in 1971. And yeah, who would believe you? You know what I want to know? What happened in Cooper's life in the weeks before the hijacking?
So, I mean, that's the key, isn't it? Something triggered this. He seemed very calm under pressure, but maybe something terrible had happened. Maybe he lost a job. Maybe, well, that would have been terrible for me. But
Yeah.
Maybe he lost a job. Maybe he got divorced. Maybe he got diagnosed with something. Again, too many rally cigarettes.
But we can't investigate that because we don't know who he was, which is the ultimate catch-22. Unless, what if nothing triggered it? What if Cooper had just been planning this for years, waiting for the perfect conditions, playing the long game like Taylor Swift? You're welcome, Swifties. That would be impressive and also terrifying. Was there something special about November 24th, 1971? Like, does that date mean anything?
Yeah, it's the date his high school sweetheart broke up with him.
Could be.
No, I mean, it's the day before Thanksgiving. There's storms in the forecast. There's a small flight crew.
It's perfect conditions if you've been waiting.
But couldn't literally any holiday work, though? Christmas seems like it would have been even better. Like dressing as a Santa would have been way more memorable. Elf suit.
I like the elf suit.
Yeah.
Okay, but if Cooper survived, do you think he regrets it? Imagine living with that secret for 50 years, never being able to tell your story, take credit, explain why. Or, imagine if he regrets it because someone did get hurt. Maybe someone searching for him died, or the trauma to the crew was worse than he had expected. The weight of unintended consequences, that can be very powerful.
No, I mean, honestly, I think if he lived, this is his I scored 4 touchdowns in the high school state championship story. You know what I mean? Like just relives it daily, tells anybody who listen.
All right, so maybe he's a sociopath. Like maybe he has absolutely no empathy.
I love sociopaths.
Yeah, but sociopaths usually just escalate. Like they don't do one perfect crime and retire. So Cooper's silence is either death or incredible self-control.
Or fear. If he survives, but barely, maybe he was too scared to ever try anything again. Like, I tried.
Well, I mean, PTSD from your own crime. All right, so let's wrap this up with final theories. Your absolute best guess, what happened to DB Cooper? Go.
I think Cooper was a CIA operative.
Oh my God, back to CIA.
Yep, this could have been a psych op. They used him because he was recently divorced or widowed, facing financial ruin. He knew the 727 intimately, had basic parachute knowledge from military service, and planned this as a combination suicide heist. So he probably died on impact, and his body is probably within 10 miles of Ariel, Washington, buried under 50 years of forest growth. No, the money scattered, it's degraded. All the evidence that could be found was cover up. never to be found except for those bills that were planted and made it to the Columbia River. Why would the CIA set this up? Who knows exactly, but the CIA has done many things that seem absolutely nonsensical.
Truth.
We are still in the height of the Cold War during this period. Maybe this was a test. Maybe this was misdirection. I'm going to take a big swing and say the tactics used by Cooper are eerily similar to the game plan of the 9/11 hijackers, except it ended in total nonviolence. So the reactions of the crew and those on board mirrored what happened. You poke the system to see the weak points, to see where the cracks are. Am I totally sure 9/11 isn't a conspiracy? No, but if it was, I believe it isn't something Bush or any active political figure knew about. If it was an American conspiracy, you only need to look at Langley.
That's thorough and completely terrifying.
Thank you.
Especially when you mention 9/11 and all of a sudden you do see this possibility. I don't think it's a conspiracy though. Okay, mine. We're going to go on a little bit of a lighter note with mine. Cooper was a disgruntled airline employee, possibly management level, who just wanted to expose security flaws and make the industry kind of look bad. He survives the jump, but was severely injured. And someone, maybe a friend, maybe a stranger, found him and helped him recover. And that person kept the secret and possibly the money. So Cooper just lived quietly until the 1980s or 90s, never spending the cash because it was about the message, not the money. The bills in the river were planted there by Cooper or his accomplice just to throw off the investigation.
You know, I really like the creativity on this one.
Okay.
So, especially like the random stranger part that helped him out. I like to think it was a really pretty girl and they slowly fell in love with each other. You know, maybe she saw him chopping wood. He didn't have a shirt on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I totally watched that movie.
The receding hairline can't cover up the six-pack.
Okay, but see, that's the thing about D.B. Cooper. Every ending is either tragic or unsatisfying because there's no version where everything makes perfect sense.
Which is why we're still talking about this 50 years later.
And probably why we'll still be talking about it in another 50 years.
Unless someone finds something like a parachute, bones, more money.
Or Cooper's deathbed confession video surfaces.
If you're watching this, I'm dead. I was D.B. Cooper. Here's what really happened.
Ultimate YouTube video. All right, mystery lovers. That's the D.B. Cooper story, or at least as much as anyone knows. The only unsolved air piracy case in American history where a polite man in a business suit outsmarted the FBI and vanished into legend.
So whether he died that night or lived to an old age, whether he was a hero or a villain, a genius or a lucky fool, we'll probably never know. But I do think the CIA is all over this one.
But that's what makes it perfect. Like in a world where every mystery gets solved by DNA or surveillance cameras, like D.B. Cooper remains unknowable.
The last American mystery.
So if you're out there, Dan Cooper, and you're somehow listening to this podcast in your 90s,
we have some questions.
We do. But we also kind of hope you never answer them.
Because you know what? I do think some mysteries are better unsolved.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us for this special episode of Mugshot Mysteries, where there's no murder, just pure unsolvable mystery.
But stay tuned, because next week we're back to our regular programming of definitely dead people and probably solved cases. Now or not. I kind of hope not, but we'll see.
Unless we stumble upon another D.B. Cooper.
Hold your tongue. There's only one D.B. Cooper.
Yeah, that we know of.
Don't give people ideas.
Too late. Until next time, mystery lovers, keep questioning everything.
And maybe don't jump out of planes in business suits.
Sneaky footsteps in the night, clues that vanish out of sight. Grab your hat and magnifying glass. We'll talk this case and have a blast. Mugshot mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. Laughs and chills, it's quite the show. Who did it? Tune in to know. Gem, a secret note, a shady figure in a trench coat. The clock is ticking, the plot gets thick. We'll crack this puzzle quick as a click. Mugshot mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. Laughs and chills, it's quite the show. Who did it? Tune in to know. breadcrumbs through the haze. Every clue's a piece in this crazy